Over 1 year ago, I put the finishing touches on my very first poison dart frog vivarium. Since then, it's become a major obsession of mine and I've been adding to my collection. You've been asking me for update videos on my frog as well as my other paludariums, and so here we go. I knew this was a hobby that I would enjoy, but I had no idea just how diverse and how crazy these ecosystems would develop to be, and how unique the animals are that inhabit them. We'll start with my pride and joy, the Volcano paludarium, which also happens to be my very first paludarium. It's been about 14 months now since I put the final touches and planting as well as the very first life inside of this bad boy. The plant growth has been insane, and the diversity of color and textures inside of here is another level. Originally, I had planned for there to be fish as well as poison dart frogs in this enclosure, but I realized that poison dart frogs don't do well with deep water, so I rehomed the fish and lowered the water level to make it accommodating for poison dart frogs. The biodiverse life consists of tropical isopods, mini dwarf isopods, as well as tropical springtails, all of which have taken root and have really thrived. I really enjoy watching the tropical isopods particularly because they always creep into small little caves and you can see them on the side of the tank where they think they're safe, so I watch them unobserved. You can get an idea of the biodiversity of this paludarium by scooping back some of the dirt. I speeded up the camera just to give you an idea of how many creepy crawlies are in just a couple square inches. The poison dart frogs inhabiting this paludarium are the Ranitomea fantastica true nominal. They're thumbnail dart frogs, which means they're some of the smallest species alive, and they can actually fit on the average human thumbnail, hence the name. That right there was one of the very first times I heard one of these little guys calling, which was also very exciting. It took me several weeks to actually capture it on film. Fantastica true nominal are actually on the endangered list, and here you can see a female chasing the male. The females are slightly larger than the males, and the males actually are the ones that take care of the babies. A few weeks later, I spotted my first male carrying tadpoles to the little water containers and ponds that I had set out for them. This, of course, is extremely exciting since this project has been 14 months in the making, and I want to do my part in the preservation of these amazing frogs. One of the favorite parts of my morning is feeding my poison dart frogs. I use the Rapashi Super Pig as well as the calcium duster. Calcium is every day and the Super Pig once a week for supplements. One main advantage of having a bioactive ecosystem is that it is self-cleaning, so the maintenance is minimum. Really, all that I have to do is trim back the creeping fig every once in a while. I'd say about once every 2 months. Depending on how many trimmings from the creeping fig I have left over, I usually recycle them. That way the nutrients are reabsorbed by the paludarium and nothing goes to waste. Here's a quick look at the side of the glass so you can get an idea of just how well everything is rooted in since then. Now let's take a look at my most recent poison dart frog build. It's been about 2 months now since I completed this bad boy. This one was extremely fun to build since I actually knew what I was doing this time and not researching as I went. In case you want to skip the research phase, I did a full video guide on how to build one of these, and I'll link it at the end of the video. The main stars of this tank are these 2 Tinctorius azuris poison dart frogs. But I also added a colony of purple dwarf isopods as well as some bioactive soil from one of my closed terrariums. They're going to make up the backbone of the cleanup crew of this particular terrarium, along with these tiny little purple springtails as well. They'll eat all the plant waste as well as the decaying plant matter and turn it into fresh nutrients for the plants to absorb. They're also a great little snack in between feedings of fruit flies for the poison dart frogs. I recently established a colony of these orange tropical springtails. They're the same as the other pink and purple springtails, except for a little bigger and, in my opinion, a lot more aesthetically pleasing. About once a week, I put a little patch of these in here to make sure that they're rooting and taking well. I feed them a little bit of protein-high fish food flakes, and that helps them thrive. They've really rooted in my terrarium well and have taken over. I also use them to supplement my dart frog's diet and keep it nice and diverse for them. The ones they don't eat just add to the paludarium and help keep it nice and clean. The frogs were pretty shy at first. However, as soon as some flightless fruit flies are dropped in the terrarium, they're front and center and greedily snatching them up. Eventually they figured out the routine and they'd be waiting for me in the morning. Something that I'm particularly pleased about is how much my poison dart frogs love to hang out by my water feature. It's where they scavenge for leftover flightless fruit flies from feeding, as well as that odd springtail that likes to hang out by the moisture. I also recently trimmed this plant back and took the trimming and put it higher up on my water feature in hopes of attaining a little bit more shade and breaking up the steep slope of that rock. Another thing that I'm particularly pleased about is the texture as well as the color variations of the plants that I ended up picking. I ultimately tried to choose as much color variation as well as different textures so that I'd have as much contrast as possible. And now that it's all grown in, I think I couldn't have picked a better combination. Something that I was really surprised to see was the little water feature. The pond that formed actually had tons of little microbial life in it. When I speed up the playback rate, you can see all the little animals twinkling around. Finally, I have the paludarium I originally built for my betta fish. He was getting pretty old and died of old age, so I added these minnows. Since I've only ever topped this off with purified water, I've never had to clean it. The plant's roots draw the fish waste and use it as nutrients, and therefore it's a never-ending cycle. Only thing I have to do is add a little bit of fish food. Something that I was really surprised to see was that the fish actually reproduced and the offspring came out blue, bright blue, nothing like the parents. When I trim back the plants, I use the trimmings to actually clone new plants as well. One of my favorite things to do is when I have extra flightless fruit flies left from feeding my poison dart frogs is dumping a couple in here for a little bit of live feeding. They're absolutely ravenous and they love the flightless fruit flies. I've got many more projects planned and some in the works, so make sure you like and please subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next one.